Okay, so again, go ahead, keep your cameras on. Um, Liz, when you are ready for that portion, again, I know this is different. One of the things that I do look forward to in driver's ed, obviously, other than having you speak, is to have everything set out, laid out, and ready for you to go. So obviously, this is a little bit different. So I did do my homework. So when you are ready for the descriptive part, it'll be, one of the better drawings, but I have Google Maps set up for your location.
Okay.
So
this is crazy to brainstorm things like this. I was trying to think of that yesterday, how I was going to envision things and change things a little bit, but it'll work. It'll be fine.
Okay. So Liz has spent a lot of years as a flight nurse, and now she works with, and again, I keep forgetting, it's still Siouxland Paramedics.
Oh, Sioux City Fire Rescue.
Sioux City Fire Rescue. Okay. Formerly Siouxland Paramedics, but now they've changed the budgets and everything, and now they're in with the fire department and work with the Sioux City Fire Rescue. So Liz has a very important story to tell you guys about the importance of why we keep stressing the focus of the driving task being the most important thing you do every time you get behind the wheel. So with that, not to curb you or anything, Liz, I just wanted to remind you that class gets over at 8:30.
I'm going to Zoom. Yeah, we'll do fine.
Okay. Just so if you wanted to leave time for questions or anything like that. But the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, you guys. I hope everybody can hear me. I know it's early. It's early for all of us, and I can see some of you smiling. So this is a little different for all of us. First thing I guess I want to say is thank you for letting me come to Zoom. And this is a really weird time. I want you guys to think about one thing. You guys are living history right now. You may not understand that completely right now. You will years from now and understand exactly what that means. This particular way of having a class, because we have to, has never happened in my life. And so this is really different, but I want you guys to sometime when you can quietly put that concept in your head and think, what the future may hold, because your teacher and I have never had to go through this. This is something unbelievable. But anyway, so like Mr. Johnson said, I have kind of an extensive background. I was a flight nurse for 14 years, working in an aircraft. I have actually worked 40 years now in EMS on an ambulance. I've been a medic for I can't remember how many years. Most all of that has been here. I did do some traveling back and forth to Phoenix every other week. I flew there to work in the Level 1 Trauma Center. I did that for about a year. So I've actually seen a lot, watched a lot, and lived a lot. I have done this for, I think I figured out about 10 years now, something like that. When I first started coming and talking to your classes, it was about what we do, what we see, why we do what we do, and not so much to preach at you guys, because I don't like to preach. And then things kind of changed a few years ago, and I'll get into that in a minute. The first thing I want you to understand is I am probably different than anybody, and I say this every time, to a different speaker than anyone you will ever know. I'm not politically correct. I'm not sweet and kind all the time. pretty blunt, direct, and to the point. So this is a conversation between all of us. So if you need to stop me and ask a question, I want you to do that. Okay. Don't feel like anybody's going to question that. This is what it's about. It's just a conversation. Um, it's also about me telling you some things about my life, which has changed how I am. And this is kind of a little different because there's a part in time where I'm going to tell you the story and I want you to visualize it, but we'll go through that in a bit. You guys are at what, the beginning, or where are you at the process here? Are you at the end, or I can't remember?
Tomorrow actually is their last day. So they've gone through a majority of it. And I mean, technically you're their first real speaker. And we've got one more presentation that I'm trying to work on getting uploaded to YouTube, and it's taken 15 hours to do now. So, but you will be the one and only live speaker we have. So, but yeah, tomorrow's the last day.
How lucky for them. Okay, so I would imagine that so far class is going well. I hope it is. I want you guys to listen and understand. Usually when we do these classes, Mr. Johnson's able to bring in a variation of speakers for different reasons. A lot of people think that when we do this and we come in to preach at you about, behave, don't drink, don't drive drunk, yada, yada, yada. I don't do that to you guys. You guys are how old now? Anybody?
14.
14.
Okay. So what does that make you guys? Even though you're 14, what does that make you guys? Pretty much makes you adults driving, okay? So realize that your kiddie years are gone the minute you get behind that wheel, all right? That's where I'm going to preach, okay? That's the extent of it. There's a lot of things I think that are important, though, that I will tell you about. When you get behind that wheel, you are responsible. You're not only responsible for yourself, you're responsible for your mom, your dad, your baby sis, your brother, your grandma, your grandpa, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever, whoever it is. It is all on you now. A very, very large percentage of the accident scenes that I go to, and I've been to a boatload in my life, not all of them are related to the driver in your car. They're related to other people. There's so much more traffic out there in different vehicles and stuff. And I guess my question to you guys is, knowing what you're doing and the course that you're in, we have knives and guns and everything else. What's the biggest weapon we have out there? Come on. Anybody? Sophie.
Your car.
There you go. You did great. You're right. Why? Because everybody has one. There's so many out there. And there's so much, especially around here. Have you guys paid attention to all the construction and stuff going on? It's ridiculous. But there's a whole lot of different factors. I always tell the classes this whenever I've come out to an accident out in around Dakota Valley or around McCook, North Sioux, in that area. It's always been very tragic because you guys have kind of a unique situation. You have a lot of cornfields there. You guys have dark roads, you have gravel roads, you have back roads that you can't see on, you have dead ends, that sort of thing. I have had numerous rollover accidents out there, so they've usually ended up in a fatality. And I say this to every class, and I'll say it to you guys too. The odds of me or one of my cohorts picking one of you in this class up at some point in time is very high. Okay, so I always ask the question, and I can't see everybody right now, so this is kind of the rough part. In this group, think about who the rowdiest person is. I bet you guys would all point if you were to one person, if you were in a classroom. Whoever that might be, realize that your risk just doubled. Okay? Not saying that being rowdy is a bad thing, I liked to party just as much as anybody else when I was your age. But because of that, that booms your risk. Okay. All right. When this class changed for me, I talked to Mr. Johnson, and y'all have to understand that what I'm about to tell you is straight from me, straight from my heart. There's no punches pulled. I'm about as direct and blatant as I can be. And there's a reason. It's because I am a changed person. Like I said, I'm not as sweet as I used to be. I'm not as nice as I used to be. And I'm certainly not as fun as I used to be. It will be 5 years coming up August 8th. My husband and I were backing out of our driveway. We were going to meet some friends out at, I think you guys know where Mike's Saloon used to be, out on the end of Hamilton, for burgers. It was one of our friends' birthday. We backed out of the driveway and I was driving. We made it about a quarter of a block to the end where the intersection is, and we made a right. Where North Junior is. Everybody? Up on Outer? Okay, there's a funeral home right there on Outer too. So that street coming down from Outer is Division. Okay, so kind of get that in your head. I live on the street right behind the funeral home. So as I'm coming down towards Outer, and we turned, we kind of crest. There you go. All right. If you go to the bottom of the screen, you see where Division is. Yep, right where the arrow is. That's the area we're talking about. So I was coming down from the bottom on Division towards Outer, and right at that driveway by the Little Opportunities Unlimited house, it's a halfway house, so right there where the arrow is, there's a tree on the left, and you can see it. That's kind of a crested hill, okay? So it's small, it's a two-way street, but it's a narrow street. As we crested over the hill, right at kind of the top of the crest there, just before you get to where the tree is on the right-hand side, is a white truck pulling what I call, because I'm not very bright at this stuff, guys, you would know, it's one of those kind of, I call them a cattle trailer that you can load lawn equipment on. Make sense? It's got kind of the rail in the front and you can carry a lot of lawn stuff. As we went by, my husband and I looked, and there was someone slumped over in the driver's seat. So doing what I do and what I've always done, my husband said, you need to check on it. Okay. So I pulled right in the center of the street next to the truck and blocked traffic. We both got out, went over to the truck, realized that the truck was running, opened the door. The person that was in it was leaned over to his right, unresponsive, sweaty, pale, non-responding at all. He did have a pulse. I reached in because he had his foot on the brake, but the truck was in gear. So I reached in, put it in gear, shut it off, took the keys, and doing what I thought was the smart thing to do at the time, I threw the keys in the truck towards the passenger side. So that, I guess my assumption was, don't lose the keys. So we get that secured. Coming from, as we're trying to take care of him, because I don't know what's wrong with him, coming up from Outer towards me is another car with a woman in it. There's a car behind me that pulls up with a gentleman and his daughter, about y'all's age, a little bit younger. He gets out and asks what's going on. We told him there was a medical emergency. He says, fine, not a problem. The one coming towards me is a woman who apparently felt like her wherever she needed to go was way more important than what we were doing. She proceeded to scream and yell at me and tell me to move and all sorts of things. Um, I'm trying to assess this patient and see what's going on, what kind of help he needs, what trouble we have. She will not shut up at all. So I told my husband, I said, stay here with him. I'm going to go move the truck and get her out of here. Second biggest mistake I've ever made besides throwing the keys. So I got in my truck, started it, and I moved our truck down and in front over to the side of the white truck that we were dealing with in trailer. Everybody got it? Okay. She goes flying by, doesn't stop, doesn't care, whatever. She's gone. As I get out of my truck and start walking back, I've got my phone and I'm trying to dial 911 and call comm center and tell them to send me the cavalry because I need some help. I'm in my own vehicle. I'm not in my ambulance. And I'm starting to dial. And as I'm starting to dial, I'm looking down and I hear a car door shut and I hear ignition start. And I look up about the time to see that the person in this truck had woken up, somehow managed to find the keys, start the ignition, and he gunned it. Put his foot on the gas and completely gunned it full force. I happened to catch it as I looked up. I took off running for the tree across the street because he was at kind of an angle. Here's the street. The front of his vehicle is like this. The trailer's kind of kitty corner back way. So when he takes off, the trailer bends just a little bit. Okay, do you guys remember where my husband was? He was right by the door. I hear him yelling at the guy to stop. And the next thing I hear is nothing. He took off. I thought he was going to hit our truck. He goes around down to outer. And as soon as he gets past me, I looked and I saw my husband coming out from underneath the trailer. He had completely run over my baby. I'm not 100% sure, but guys, how much do those trailers weigh unloaded? Anybody?
A lot.
Exactly. Now add a full load of equipment. So I proceeded to scream. The person that had pulled up behind us with the little girl witnessed it. The neighbors that were in the house by the tree witnessed it. I'm trying to, how do I say this gracefully, get my shit together to take care of my baby. To this day, I still remember the look on his face. He rolled a couple of times. The gentleman behind us came up and asked if he could help. All this is going on, and I can hear screeches of this truck because he goes down outer and heads towards Floyd. Speeding. I'm screaming for someone to chase him, get the plate, get whatever you can. The gentleman behind me, who happens to be a neighbor, helped me roll Troy over. and I knew we were in trouble. He wasn't breathing. He wasn't moving. Oh, Andrew, I can't ever do this even on camera. He had a lot of visible trauma. But what I remember the most is his eyes were open. And I remember screaming, talking to him, telling him I loved him and not to leave me. I tried to call. I had my phone down by my side, and I'm trying to hit the button saying dial 911. I struggled with that because I'm trying to do CPR at the same time. The only part that I remember is when Diane from Comm Center, and I didn't know who it was at the time, answered. I must have been screaming or something. I don't know, because she said, Liz, I can't understand. And they sent help. Station 7 came from the firehouse at Floyd and Outer, and one of my ambulances came. I remember laying in the middle of the street in a dress, trying to do CPR and put IVs in my husband and push meds and put an airway in and breathe for him and all these things. We proceeded to load him up. Just as they were loading him up, one of the officers that was off duty, that's a good friend, showed up, and he came up behind me. I really didn't know who he was at the moment. When they tell you that you're in a period of shock, yeah, that's an understatement. I'm a person that is always in control of everything, and I couldn't walk, talk, spit, shoot, nothing at that moment. All I could do is say what I saw, and he was white. He was probably in his 20s. He had no shirt on. He had khaki shorts on. He had tennis shoes on, and he had sandy blonde curly hair. The one other thing that I remembered is he had said something about Dusty. That's all I knew. When he went by. Needless to say, within about 5 minutes, apparently the radio traffic went absolutely haywire because he was bailing and running. We were headed to the hospital at Mercy. Things in life are really, really weird, and I don't know how they turn out this way, but our best friend, who happened to be a ER physician, this is all I really remember of driving, and I drove myself to the hospital, texted me and said, I'm standing at the door. I don't know how I can only figure one way that he knew it was us, was probably the crew when they called on the radio, said, hey, this is Troy. The trauma surgeon happened to be one of our very best friends. So it was just kind of a weird thing how that happened. So we go to the emergency room, and they're working on Troy, doing everything they can. There's 15 people in the room and a boatload of equipment and machines and tubes and noises and alarms, the things that go on. I remember having to make phone calls. One of my brother-in-laws is a police officer. I had to call him, and I had to call my mother-in-law. God loves some of our ambulance people. They drove over there in South Sioux and picked her up and brought her in. This whole time they're searching, and people are asking me questions, and officers are coming in, and detectives, and all sorts of things. Finally, they had me go in the room, and I had to tell them to stop. We didn't have anything back. He never got any pulses back. They worked on him for quite a while. It just, we were done. It was over. That passed. 1 minute I'm laughing with him, and literally 1 minute later, he's gone. So the detectives are there, and they finally come in and tell me that Plymouth County had gotten him. He had apparently taken off and gone out towards the county north, and I think they got him out on C80. He still pulling the trailer. He tried to speed by, and one of the Plymouth County deputies put him in a ditch. So they take him to Plymouth County. My best friend, who is a deputy here, was with me the whole time, and he and the detective ended up driving me to Plymouth County, where I had to ID. Yeah, this guy. My names for this guy are not very nice. I'll admit it. I still have not gotten over it. I still have a hell of a time getting over things. So you know how in the TV shows where they have the mirror, you're on one side and they're on the other. It's true. We were standing right here. My friend was behind me. Here's the mirror, the window, and they waltzed him in. And as they came in the door, he wasn't even in the door yet. And I was like, that's him. Don's like, are you sure? I said, 1000%. And I took off. And my friend tackled me. Anybody have an idea where I was going? I was going after him. Okay. I am not this person. Okay. I've never been that person. But I actually bailed off in a police station in front of cops to go get this guy, and had every intention of hurting him. First time in my life that I ever thought I'd hurt anybody. So yeah, it's him. So they do what they do with him. The guys take me back to Mercy. Now, mind you, my husband has just been pronounced dead when I was taken away from him to go do this. So I have to go back to Mercy and spend some time doing a lot of, I don't know, soul searching, paperwork, questions, answers, crying, screaming, notifying a family, that whole thing. Okay. So the next step in this process is he gets pulled to Woodbury County and held from Plymouth. Days go by, the system goes by, you have to let the system work. Frankly, I don't think there should be a system for anybody who's witnessed, and it was witnessed by few, that I think you should just go off and be done. I don't think we need to waste money and time and the taxpayers' efforts over that. But my opinion doesn't count in these things. So we go through a couple video sessions. He does it from jail. Poor me, poor me, poor me. He had the utter gall to send me a letter to my house one time with absolutely no regret, no remorse, just a bunch of chit chat. Then finally court comes. At the time, he was up for vehicular homicide. Vehicular homicide holds in Woodbury County or in the state of Iowa 25 years with a minimum mandatory of 8 3/4. meaning you have to serve at minimum that amount of time. So we get to court, a lot of chit chat between lawyers, and he finally says he's gonna plea. His lawyer pretty much tells him, "You were busted. You were witnessed. You're not getting out of this." Okay, fine. I'll plead guilty. So we get to court that day, and the judge asks him, "Are you represented correctly?" Yada yada yada, all the questions, and he says, "No, he wasn't." So now we're in court. I'm losing it. Um, Everybody's mad. The courtroom's full of people. We have to go out of session for another hour before they finally convince him to do the right thing, which he does. It is true that when you have cases like that, that the family has a chance to go talk to them directly. He is sitting right up here. I'm back here. But in order to get to the stand, I had to walk behind and around and in front of him. The courtroom is full of Woodbury County deputies that I work with, who know me very well, but who also questioned me that much, because when I got up and walked over, they blocked him. And when I got in front of him, I literally did stand there and stare at him. So I got to be on the stand and say my piece. You know, when you're in court, there's a judge. You have to be a bit professional, even though, believe me, you don't want to. There was many tears. I said what I needed to say. He proceeds to stand up and boo-hoo and cry in front of everybody, which was a show because he never boo-hooed and cried before. Yeah, he ends up copping to the vehicular homicide. So he now sits in Clarinda. He was sentenced that day, went back to Woodbury, and at midnight that night he was transferred out to Clarinda, which is where he sits right now. In 8 3/4 years, which we're hitting 5 right now, he and I will meet again. I have talked to God numerous times, and I can't get it out. Can't get it out of my heart. Some people forgive. I can't. And I think now that it's because of what I see and what I do for a living. But I have every intention of meeting him and the system admin down there, and I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that he does every last second of 25 years. He had a history of some drug charges. He had a history of theft. The boo-hooing doesn't work with me. I have no sympathy anymore. I have zero sympathy and zero tolerance for some of the people that I pick up that are drunk and driving or drugged and driving and hurt somebody, hurt themselves, hurt their family or whatever. My tolerance went from way high to very minimal. Like I said, I used to be fun-loving, outgoing and stuff. I'm short-tempered, I'm tired, I'm crabby, I'm bitchy, I'm intolerant, and this has gone on for almost 5 years now. Yes, I've gone to therapy. I still am in therapy. PTSD is something that everybody thinks that the military has, and they do. But it also, I had no clue until it happened to me. You hear about it, but it's one of those things, unless it happens to you, you have no idea. I still do have times where you can be driving your car, you can be in a grocery store, you can be doing whatever, and all of a sudden that picture of Troy's face after coming out from the trailer hits me, and there's nothing that you can do to stop it. I cry, I scream. There's been times where I've been in the fetal position on the floor. It's a very scary thing. Like I said, guys, unless you live this, you don't get it. So yeah, that's my goal. Now, what you also need to know is that in this accident, it wasn't just run over my baby. There's days I can do this and days I struggle. He not only ran over his legs, his pelvis, his chest, but he also ran over his head too. He had head bleeds. He had fractured ribs, most all of them in the front and the back, lacerated his liver, hurt his spleen, had some other fractures. The one thing, and I can deal with a lot, that I have a hell of a time living with still, is that he internally decapitated my baby, meaning he severed him. I have a hell of a time with that. And I sat there and watched life go out of him instantly because of that. So I guess in this whole grand scheme of things, I'm not stupid. I know you guys are going to party. I want you to party. I want you to have fun. I also know that probably half of you in this group have already done some drugs or drank. Okay. My version on the drugs is you're an idiot. Okay. You're just an idiot if you do it. The drinking, we've all done stuff like that. The one thing that I will tell you is if you're going to party, and I know you will, hand your keys over, put them in your pocket, call your mom, a friend, your dad, call me, call a teacher, call anybody you can for a ride. Yourself, pick up the phone or go to the door and have to tell your parents that your child is dead because they were stupid, because they did something completely, utterly dumb and reckless. And I have had to do that. And it's heartbreaking. There are no goodbyes, guys, when these things happen. It's done. It's done like that. You don't get to say, I'm sorry, I love you, I miss you. Nothing. You'll never get that back. So please use your best judgment. As I tell everybody in the other classes, if you have to get a ride home, you had your butt chewed by your parents before. You survived it. You will survive getting your butt chewed again. All right, we all have. I've had mine chewed up growing up as a kid numerous times. You will survive it, but you'll be alive. I want y'all to have the best time ever. You deserve that. But you don't deserve what happened to me. And I hope to God you never cause that. Because I'm not the sweetest person in the world. Some people will forgive. I have not. And jail is not for juvies. I go to the jail all the time. They're mean. They're nasty. Not just the guys. The females are too. It is not a place you guys want to be. But if that's the life you choose, that's the life you'll get. So I hope that you all do well. I wish you the best. Anybody have any questions? I'm More than happy to answer them. Good luck.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if you're comfortable talking about
Hang on, babe. Andrew is cutting out.
Hey, Charlie, your mic's cutting out. Do you want to type your question on there on the chat?
Glad you asked. Yes, he was. K2, which is the reason he bailed. The point is drugs and stupid mistakes. But he's alive, getting 3 meals a day and watching TV and working out and doing all those things. My husband's not. I'm still here. I spend my anniversary alone, every holiday alone. And yeah, he's still sitting there doing his thing, hoping to get out. When you guys go to do your driving, whenever that is, Mr. Johnson will tell you about that. He will take you up to where my husband was killed. And it's just not killed. It's murder. You know, I can't say killed because he was murdered. Just happened to be a car that they used. But you guys talk to your teacher, ask him questions. Just remember, I always tell the group, before you do something, think. When you're done, think again. Just remember there's consequences to every decision that you make. Okay?
Hey, Liz, do you want to explain a little bit what K2 is? Just because I know that there's a lot of other things that kind of come about with obviously drugs as they mutate and morph and they come up with new things, especially with a lot of stuff that's going around now.
Yeah. So, okay, guys, when I was a kid, marijuana was marijuana. It was a plant, it was a leaf, and that was true. That is not the fact anymore. And I can tell you this from firsthand experience, living around it, dealing with it, and the patients. K2 is a synthetic type of marijuana. They add damn near everything in the world to these drugs now. I'm not kidding. We have had fentanyl laced with poisons. We've had, I can't even begin to tell you all the combinations of crap they come up with. Meth is not just meth anymore. It's absolutely loaded with 1,000 things that you never want. And that's the problem. And that's why we have these overdoses and people die much quicker. You know, this is not the old days when I was your age. Back then, we used to leave our doors open. Things were safe. You could walk your street at night. You can't do that anymore, guys. You're living in a completely different time. And I would be very, very, I don't even know the word I want to say, if you choose to do a drug from someone that you do know or don't know, because those things are coming from outside sources and the drug cartels are really pushing hard. And it's crazy. Don't think that it will ever end, because even the meds that we use to sedate people and treat people legitimately, those are the drugs they want. As soon as we start another one, then they go to that. And it's down the line and down the line and down the line. Right now, the big hit is fentanyl, carfentanil. There's meth and all sorts. There's so much I can't even. It would take me hours and hours and hours to discuss it all. Just know that drugs are not drugs, pure anymore. And yeah, one sniff, one shot. I will also tell you that my niece died of a hot shot to the neck from an overdose. So, yeah, it's out there. And once you're hooked for life. So please, please, please think. Okay? And good luck to all of you. And pay attention to your teacher, because he's a pretty cool guy.
At least one person that thinks, and at least one person in here thinks that. Real quick, guys, can I get you to turn off your volumes real quick? Or turn on your volume, unmute. All right, so obviously it's a little bit easier when we are in class. So now that we have everyone on, what do we say for Liz for taking the time to come in here and be with us today?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just to mute back.
I'm going to let you close out, Andrew. I'll see you at 8:30.
8:30, yep, with your new link.
Okay, bye, guys.
Thanks, Liz.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Wow, right? Probably not what you were expecting in a speaker. I think after hearing this, I assume you can probably understand why I will do anything for her. When she wants to mess up our class, she gets to mess up our class. So like I said, when I told you guys yesterday that she was willing to come on and do this live, I was more than happy to take the time to block out the class and even make things better for you by giving you free reins on taking the Chapter 9 test. Because this is what driver's ed is really about. It's about making sure that you are aware of your surroundings, making sure that you make good decisions. And the biggest reason is because for the first time in your life, but society in general is treating you like an adult. And I know for the last year or two, you guys have started feeling like you want more responsibility, and you want to be treated as an adult. You want to be respected as an adult. And this is your first rite of passage of taking advantage of that, where the state of South Dakota is going to give you a card that's going to allow you to drive a vehicle and have responsibility and freedom on your own. Yeah, and that's why it's an awesome responsibility, you know, and an awesome experience. And usually I talk to all of my classes at some point in time. You know, some people ask, you know, why did you want to become a driver's ed teacher? And it's kind of in this speech, not what Liz had to say, but why do I teach driver's ed? Because I remember when I was 16, the summer of 1995, right about this time in June, I was getting rides to Sergeant Bluff High School, taking driver's ed. And I remember sitting in the class. I remember reading the book. I remember taking tests. I remember doing assignments. I remember the lectures that Mr. Parks gave us. I remember the speakers that came in and talked to us. I remember the driving portion. I remember almost hitting a pheasant as we turned off the exit to go to the mall off of Highway 20. I remember the drives that we did and the things that we went through. I remember being one of the unique students that got to stop and get gas, because that was a big deal for me. And that was something that I've been doing now for over 25 years. And, you know, it's awesome. And so when I became a teacher, one of the things that I thought would be really cool is to be able to be a part of that experience with kids and to move on that right or that responsibility to you guys. And I enjoy doing it every year. And I enjoy the experiences that I have, you know, with driving and teaching and the classroom. And so again, this is one of the reasons why I fought for this class. This is one of the reasons why I fought for you guys to be able to take driver's ed in the summer. And it wasn't easy, and it's a lot of work, and it's been stressful, and it's been overwhelming. But I asked for all of this, you know, and it's for you, you know, because to me, you know, driving isn't a right, it's a privilege, but driving is a rite of passage. You know, it's the opportunity for you guys to be able to grow up. And, you know, I wanted that for you. And again, it's been a lot of sacrifice for me, but it's worth it. Okay. I'm going to work way more hours than I'm going to get paid for, but it's not really about the pay. It's about, you know, doing what I enjoy. You know, how many of you ever heard the phrase, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life? Okay, a couple of you. And that is really true. You know, obviously money is a big deal. I don't know if I could do this for free just because, you know, it is a job and I do love the money. Don't get me wrong there. But, you know, if money wasn't an issue, I could do this because I really enjoy it. I enjoy walking you guys through this process because when you look back, when you're 41 and you're my age, you know, you'll remember driver's ed. But I guarantee you, you won't forget today. Because this is the real life, the reality of what drivers can do with the responsibility that they have. So just as easily as it is given to you, it can be taken away just as quick. So with that, reactions. Anyone brave enough to share? Peyton, I thought so.
Okay, so I'm reacting on how I felt about what she said.
Yeah, I mean, anything. Just tell me anything. What's your, all that?
Well, I was crying because I felt like I didn't know what to say because like I feel like it's something that like she was trying to do the right thing by like helping him out, and then like it ended up like backfiring to her, I guess, in a way. But like I was crying because I felt terrible for her. But like I feel like I also said this in my response yesterday because I feel like it's something just so relatable. Like I feel like when everyone like steps in the car or something, I think something you take for granted, like you don't like every time like I call my parents, or like I end it with like goodbye, I love you, right? And I feel like that's something where it's definitely taken for granted because like you never know like once they step behind the wheel, like if you're ever gonna say anything again.
Mhm.
And I feel like that just when she said something about her, how she was like laughing with her husband, and then like the next, like I feel like that just put me at a loss of words because like can't really understand her, but like it's just I felt terrible and I didn't know what to say because
Yeah.
it was just
So that is one of the things that I had thought about as I knew that she was going to be live with us. So there is going to be an assignment on this presentation, just like the other presentations. But what I thought was, since we have kind of a unique situation, it is tougher that we're not all together in a class. And again, I hate it for that. But it is what it is. I mean, we're able to have this class because we're able to meet today normally like we do. So what I want you to do and what the assignment will be for this presentation is just talk about how her speech or how her presentation has affected you. Because I know some of you for the last 9 days now, some of you have probably just gone through the motions, and that's okay. You show up, you take the test, you do the assignment, whatever, it's driving, I'll be fine. Until today. Some of you, I think it's hopefully all of you, but obviously I know there's at least one or two where you're changed after today. Okay, because the reality hit of, holy crap, what I do now really can affect somebody else's life. What I do can affect my own life. And I was going to ask her, because normally she pulls up his picture on her phone and shows you she normally, and I'll be honest, her presentation today was definitely more tame. Usually she does tell you his nickname, which I'll tell you because it's her words, not mine. It's shithead. That's what she calls him. And, agree. Yeah. Honestly, I could think of much worse things to call him if I were in that situation, but, I feel like that's pretty tame. And she does say that, I give her free range to, I wouldn't say swear, but I let her speak from the heart. I let her speak with raw emotion. And that's what you get. And, to me, driver's ed, it's a real thing. So what I want to instill to you is I want to make it as real as possible. So it didn't really come up, so I didn't worry about it, but I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And there's shithead. And again, just to show, that this is real. It's not an actor. It's not staged. We're not trying to put on a show to scare you and be, create this false sense of, oh, you need to be paying attention and all that. I mean, this is the Sioux City Journal's website. And here's the article ran. South Sioux City man sentenced to 25 years for vehicular homicide. And there's the article. And the article basically just goes through. I mean, here's the interesting thing. I mean, you read the article, Troy and Liz Ford saw Dustin Soupy's pickup truck and trailer stopped in a Sioux City street. Soupy slumped over the steering wheel under the influence of an unknown substance. As Liz Ford stood along the street, calling for help on her cell phone, a startled Soupy woke up, put the truck in drive, sped off, running over Troy Ford with the trailer. You know, 2 easy sentences, right? But after hearing her talk for 45 minutes, it's a lot more than that, isn't it? So, you know, and I hate when she says this, but I'm really glad they put in the article. My last kiss to my husband was when I did CPR. Imagine that. Imagine if that had been your brother or sister if you have siblings. Imagine if that had been your mom and dad. Like, I couldn't imagine it. Like, it's, you know, and I feel so bad for what she goes through every day. I don't know how old her dog is. I assume her dog is still alive. But they had a husky or a Malamute, definitely a husky looking like dog. And she talked about him quite a bit. And she doesn't as much anymore. But again, I would assume, because I'm friends with her on Facebook, so I would assume that she would post if she had lost her dog. But their dog went through the same trauma. The dog knew something was wrong. The dog would wait for Troy to come home. The dog didn't eat for the longest time. The dog was depressed. And, you know, and I hate to see that because I have 2 dogs, and, you know, basically those 2 dogs are my kids, you know, so basically she's now a single mom trying to raise a dog, you know, that's going through similar things that she is. But then when we scroll down here a little bit, that was the picture they used for Troy for his obituary as well. So, I mean, again, she talked about being this fun-loving person. She talked about enjoying life, and now it's miserable. And she wasn't the one that committed the crime. She wasn't the victim in all this. She was, in a sense, a bystander. But just to kind of reiterate that the decisions that you make don't just affect you. There's a lot of collateral damage. It affects a lot of people. It affects, you know, obviously Troy's parents. It affected Liz. It affected her dog. It affected the entire police community or the emergency response community. Because he did the same thing. And what really hurts me the most, kind of like what you said, Peyton, is the fact that one of the main reasons why they stopped is because that was their life. They stopped because they were trained to stop. You know, they stopped because it's the right thing to do. And they have the knowledge and the education and the background to be able to help somebody. So they stopped to help. And look what happened. The end result of helping resulted in a lot of pain and a lifetime of anguish. And ultimately, it took one of their lives. And so I hope that this gets you, because it gets me every time. I try to keep busy. Honestly, I was doing a lot of administrative paperwork, but doesn't mean that I don't listen. And again, she talks about when she came in initially, she would talk about the trauma that she dealt with as a flight nurse. She talked about trauma that she saw as an emergency responder. And every once in a while, they would bring the helicopter out when Mr. Ham taught the class, when it was just him. And then this happened. And I'll never forget when I saw the article that somebody was killed at the intersection of 41st Division and Outer Drive, which was the, sorry, let me get back here. I'll share my screen again here. That happened right in this area because I live near this area. And for those of you who are kind of wondering where we're at, so it happened in this area right here. You got North Middle right here. You've got North High School right here. So for those of you that have played basketball, a lot of you have been in those North leagues right there. And it happened right there. Or for a little bit of a different reference point, the Walmart on Floyd Boulevard, right here, Pizza Ranch. I know a few of you have frequented those places. Here's the intersection, and it's just further down Outer Drive. Right there is where those things are. So yeah, it really threw me off when I saw that, and then I saw the name, Troy Ford. I'm like, Troy Ford? Does that have anything to do with Liz Ford? And then I looked, and then I saw the article, and there she was. It was her husband. So when that happened in August, I struggled because I knew that she's one of our regular speakers for driver's ed. And how am I going to approach this subject? How am I going to ask her, hey, would you be willing to present for driver's ed again this year? Especially when we're talking about driver's education. And I had some conversations with Mr. Ham. I said, hey, I don't know what to do. He's like, yeah, I know. That'd be tough. So I decided I was going to ask her. Why? To give her the opportunity. Because if she wants to speak, then she should be able to speak. If she wants to carry on with what she's been talking about, so be it. So I emailed her. A few days went by, and then she responded back. And she said, yeah, I think I'm going to change my format a little bit. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but if you can give me an hour, we'll see how it works. And yeah, and here we are. And so the first group, for anybody who knows that took driver's ed, you guys are 8th grade going into freshman year, most of you. Peyton, it was your sister's group. I don't think your sister took driver's ed with me, but if she took driver's ed through Dakota Valley, that was the first year it happened in Morgan's class. So yeah, it was rough. It was a rough presentation, very different. You know, and here we are 5 years later. She's all over the place. Every presentation's different. I guarantee you the talk that she gives at 8:30 will be slightly different than what she talked about now. And it's different every time. She talks about different stuff each time. That's why I try to fill in some of the things that she does talk about. Sometimes she reads the letter that she brought up in his probation hearing, and that's tough because basically it's just a verbal attack on him, professionally done, that the decision he made took a life, and he's going to own it till the day he dies. So, Peyton, do you have a question?
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, you know how you were saying about like that you'll always remember it or something like that?
Mhm.
Just last day, me and Grace Bass were walking and she was talking about how she remembered this girl's story. Like,
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was in, I think 2 years ago, driver's ed. Yeah, and hopefully, you know, 20 years from now, you're driving, you're an experienced driver. Hopefully, you're still a safe driver. Honestly, I don't care if you don't remember a whole lot about the class. I don't care if you really remember that, oh, Mr. Johnson was the one that taught it. But I assume if you take one thing away from this class, you're going to remember today. Without a doubt. I still have people that have come back and, you know, just kind of shooting the breeze. And it's like, oh, are you still teaching driver's ed? Like, yep. Like, yeah. I really remember that one lady's speech that talked about when her husband was killed. Yeah, that's the one big takeaway that people do remember. And it's because it's powerful. Not to say that any of our other speakers were not good, but you're not going to get another speaker like her. Tim's talk was fairly close, but you don't get as much of the emotion as you do with Liz. And that's why, again, she runs the roost in my class. When she wants something done, it's taken care of. Because normally in the classroom, I set out a chair for her. She's never used the chair yet. But I always tell her that she can sit if she wants, but I know her well enough. She walks around. She likes to pace. She usually does the drawing on the board, which is why I told her that I took care of Google Maps for her. And, you know, usually I have a box of Kleenex sitting on the on my demonstration table, or I have a couple Kleenex set out for her, which, you know, I'm surprised that she didn't really use Kleenex today. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's no trouble to go out of my way to do things for her. Because one, she likes to use this as a therapy, even though it doesn't really get better. But I mean, I think her message is pretty clear to you, that if she can get one of you that's in a bad situation to make a right decision and not to drive, then she did her job. Any other comments? Okay, so that's going to be part of your assignment for this presentation. I want your reaction. And then if you would like to write a note, I mean, write your reaction of how it is, but if you would like to tell how her presentation has affected you. What I plan to do, since this is a unique opportunity, most people usually like to wait in line to give her a hug. So obviously we can't do that. But what I will do is I will take your assignments and send them to her, so that you have the ability to reach out, and just to see, just so she can see the value of what she means to me and the value that she means to you. So again, just a paragraph, and it'll be just as simple as, you know, what you took away, and all it's going to be is what you took away from her presentation and how it's affected you. Like, how is this going to affect you from here on out? Haley, question?
So which assignment do we type the paragraph on?
Oh, I'll get it posted. I wanted to make sure I wait up to the end of class to get those kicked out. Same thing with the Chapter 9 test. Again, I'm not saying that anyone would do it, but I held off for the Chapter 9 test because I'm in front of the screen talking to you, but as far as you know, I could be doing something completely different. I am talking to you, but it could have been a situation where somebody's on and taking the test while they are in class. But I really wanted you guys to focus on the task at hand, which is listening to her. So I'll post the test and I'll post the assignment out there, and it'll just be like the other ones. You'll just type your information in and submit it. So good question. Yeah, Peyton.
Because I know I was gonna do them all yesterday, the presentations, but I think you only had 2 links on there. As the State Farm one wasn't like a link, there wasn't a link to watch that yet.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna put that on.
And I'm still working on that. For some reason it's been loading since 5 o'clock yesterday. And part of the problem is Zoom loads a lot quicker, but when you actually do regular video, it takes so much longer for YouTube. And I don't understand why it's taking this long, because it's only a 12-minute video. So there's not a lot of, it's not something that you're going to sit here for an hour to watch. It's going to take like 10 minutes. It'll be a quick video. It's just taking so dang long to load into YouTube. But like I said, as soon as that finishes loading, I think I'm at 75% now, and I was at 40% last night before I went to bed at 11:30. So I don't know. But I will work on that during the second class, during their presentation. And hopefully if I can get that loaded, hopefully that'll be done by 10 o'clock today, because I want that done before I go to work today. All right, anyone else? All right, so again, Chapter 9 will get posted. The assignment